Hello and welcome. You're watching a very special show on Times Now. I'm Siddhartha Talya and I have the privilege today of being joined by renowned Vedic scholar and now author, Mr. Dushyant Sridhar. Thank you so much, Mr. Sridhar, for coming and speaking to us here in our studios in Noida. We've had the good fortune of debating with you and interacting with you on our primetime debates, but it's been a while since we've seen you in our studio, so many thanks for gracing the studio with your presence. And let me begin by congratulating you on this beautiful chronicle of the life of Lord Rama, Rāmāyaṇam, Volume 1, written by Mr. Dushyant Sridhar himself. It's true to the original text that's been, of course, authored by Sri Valmiki ji, and we'll, of course, get into the details of how you went about translating the life of Lord Rama. It's a part of a 2-volume project. The first volume is now out, and the second one, you hope, will be out next year, as do we. Let me begin by asking you, Mr. Sridhar, you, of course, started studying our scriptures at the age of 5, when you were very young. And then subsequently, when you went on to study in BITS Pilani, the Vice-Chancellor of the university back then approached you and asked you to deliver upanyasams on campus. So is it therefore a logical progression on your part from delivering upanyasams to now, of course, chronicling the life of Lord Rama?
The journey has been really blissful. With such wonderful people around me, and I'm extremely indebted to my Vice-Chancellor Venkateshwaran, who kind of motivated me to rendering discourses, pravachanams or upanyasams as they are called. And yes, the learning has been because of the benevolence of the various gurus under whom I've learnt shastras, and of course delivering so many lectures over a decade plus years does give you that little foundation to write a book on the Ramayanam with little research which is also involved. So a lot of them have contributed to this project. I am just the tool, the medium that's carrying the content.
So let's in fact get into why you decided to take this up, because there are several translations of the Ramayana published through history. The one that I can recall and the one that I've read when I was growing up was C. Rajgopalchari's translation, the 1-volume abridged version of the Ramayana, which was published by the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. Subsequently, there have been other translations. Ramesh Menon's translation has actually been used in studies on comparative religion in some Western universities. Ashok Banker came out with his own retelling of the Ramayana in several versions. What sets this apart? How was your approach different, sir?
Honestly, I have immense respect for Rajaji, and it was during at least 60-70 years back. In Tamil, he called it Chakravarti Tirumagan, and then it came in English through Bharati Vidya Bhavan publication, and it has been one of the best sellers of all times, and I've been a great fan of it. That said, what they could do in that limited time and space was to kind of give you a translation of Valmiki's verses and put it in a very nice prose form. But I have learnt under my acharyas that each work, the Bharatiya scripture that we all respect, revere, love, each of the scriptures presented to us, be it Ramayanam, be it Mahabharatam, be it Bhagavatam or Vishnu Puranam and other scriptures, they all come to us in the form of poetry, which is kavyam. And kavyam has its own limitations, so many letters, so many words. So there's a prosody, there's a meter. So what happens is reading the lines alone wouldn't suffice. Reading between the lines will always help understand the scripture without any ambiguity. So to be unambiguous, the commentaries become very important. And there are 6 commentaries to the Ramayanam. We have Bhushana by Govindaraja, we have Tattvadipika by Maheshwara Tirtha, we have Tilaka by Nagesha Bhatta, we have Kataka by Madhava Yogin, Dharmakutam by Trayambaka Makhin, and then we have Vamshidhara Shiva Sahaya's Shironmani. All 6 commentaries in Sanskritam, and they are there for all the 23,000 plus, 24,000 plus verses. So what happens is when people write Ramayanam, they consider only Valmiki's Ramayanam and not get into the commentaries, which actually kind of answer those questions which crop up in the minds of people, especially the younger generation. Right. So that has been incorporated into the book. But of course, it wouldn't seem like a research work to a normal reader. It will be like a seamless reading of a novel. But all this has been induced, injected, embroidered, stitched into the writing.
Let me in fact address one particular issue that's a recurring theme whenever one speaks of the Ramayanam, and this is something that you've actually written in your preface, and let me just read it out for the benefit of our viewers. You've said, Ramayana reminds me of Valmiki, a Maharishi and poet of the highest order, whose presentation of Rama and Sita's life history is the plain truth. It is thus referred to as an itihasa, making it integral to Bharat's history. To keep associating the Ramayana with the word myth is gross injustice. Why do you say it's injustice?
It is injustice because just because it has come to us in the form of poetry. Poetry will have some amount of similes, will have some amount of metaphors, will have a large mix of exaggeration. So that is integral to poetry. It was given to us in the form of poetry so that we will be able to memorize, retain, and then disseminate that knowledge easier. So the purpose of poetry was to help us. But today it's been changed where they say that it is a kavyam, so it has to be a myth. How can monkeys fly? How can this? See, if that is the way that you approach, there is also politics around stating that I don't follow Rama, I follow Ravana's clan. They say, on one side they say we don't accept Rāmāyaṇam, and on the other side they say they are a lineage of Ravana. So if you ask them, how do you know that you are a lineage of Ravana? They say we know through Rāmāyaṇam, but they have called Ramayana a myth. So you cannot be a hypocrite. And to us, our Maharishis are kings. In fact, the Cholas, in every inscription they state we are the descendants of Rama. Every dynasty in Bharata Desham, you go to any dynasty, they say either they trace it to Surya Vamsha or Chandra Vamsha. So when they say that we are the descendants of Rama, then you are also calling the Cholas untrue, because you are saying they are lying. So in my humble opinion, IMHO, I honestly feel that we shouldn't be using the word myth, because nowhere it is mentioned as myth. The word itihasa means it is a direct report. It's like the journalism that you channels do. You report what is there. Whether people like it or not, it's your duty to report. Similarly, Valmiki reports. Why should we disagree with Valmiki?
So how would you respond to somebody who says that parts of it might be itihasa, but there are certain fantastical / supernatural elements associated with the text as well? How do you rationalize that as history? What would be your rebuttal to that kind of an argument coming from the other side?
Siddhartha, I'm sure Times Now viewers will appreciate. Even when we speak at home,
yes.
Say for example, I take my mother on a car drive. I drive very fast. My mother will tell my mother's sister, my aunt, oh, he flew. She knows for the very fact that I'm not a pilot. So she knows very well what she meant by flying was, I went faster than the normal speed. So this is common in Indian languages parlance. Any Bharatiya language from the south to the north, east to the west, we are generally people who exaggerate. So if we commoners can exaggerate, why can't great poets like Valmiki and Vyasa not be accorded that license? So they have exaggerated in certain places. But that doesn't take away from the very fact that there is a person called Rama.
Yes.
There is a goddess, a devata called Sita. They were married. There was some turmoil in their life. And learn from it. That doesn't take away from that very fact. Exaggeration should not lead us to negating that whole kavya.
And that's unfortunately what has happened.
Very much.
With respect to our ancient epics, not just the Ramayana but also the Mahabharata, there's been a tendency to dismiss it as fantasy.
Very true.
Let's in fact also get into your background as a Vedic scholar. Like we told our viewers earlier, you began reading our scriptures, or studying them rather, at the age of 5. How did your knowledge as a Vedic scholar actually enable or facilitate this entire process of translation, sir? Does that give you a bit of an added advantage?
Reading or understanding our shlokas, stotras, stavams, kavyams from revered teachers does help, because you imbibe the art of our civilization, which is Shruti and Smriti. You listen and you retain. And so that is the basic, the very foundation for our dharma. And besides that, when you sit and listen through lectures and you read the researched works of great acharyas, great preceptors who have adorned this land, you will learn the art of analyzing our scriptures. So learning our scriptures doesn't stop only with learning. It helps you internalize, analyze, contemplate, imbibe, so many other concurrent reactions. So that has helped. And I would actually even attribute my modern school education and my Pilani education, my engineering background, to actually say that, engineering also helps to an extent to analyze in a very logical way the happenings of Rāmāyaṇam and put forth that to people in very relatable or comprehensible terms.
I had the good fortune of going through the text, and one thing that really stood out for me was the fact that the book emphasizes a lot on the geographical mapping and the geographical expanse of the Ramayanam. I'll read one excerpt for the benefit of our viewers here, and this is something that is actually visible as you read through the text in the footnotes. And you said, he said a righteous Raja called Kusha had 4 mighty sons, namely Kushambha, Kushanabha, Adurta Rajasa and Vasu. Upon receiving directions to set up their own Rajadhanis, the sons built Kaushambi, Mahodaya, Dharmaranya and Girivaraja respectively. Girivaraja is the Rajdhani that is blessed with the flow of Sona waters. Now, footnote 1, which is Kaushambi, is Kaushambi. 2 is Kanauj, a city in Uttar Pradesh, of course. Mirzapur is Dharmaranya, and Rajgir is Girivaraja. So the modern day, of course, descriptions or the names, the nomenclatures that have been adopted for these cities is something that is actually referred to in the footnotes of the book. You've taken the extra effort to emphasize that, sir. Why do you do that?
So when we say that Ramayanam is history, when we say Ramayanam was called Itihasa, as it happened, so it happened, it was reported, and we also say that Srimad Ramayanam is history, that history should be attached and intertwined with geography. So geography is very important for history. So for that reason, when we look at Valmiki's description in the Ramayana, he is very clear in describing that this particular city is on the banks of this particular river. So Ayodhya Nama Nagari, so he talks about Sarayu. Then he talks about Ganga. While they move towards Chitrakuta, he talks about Yamuna. He talks about a particular tree called Shyama. So he is very, very careful in determining the rivers and the cities. Rivers, of course, kind of retain the same names, but cities have changed. So it is very important that, for example, Vishwamitra takes the 2 sons of Dasharatha, Rama and Lakshmana, on a sojourn. It's like an internship, an industrial training for 6 days. So when he takes them, he goes through different places and narrates the incidents around that place. So he ensures that he gives you the geographical details. So as a person who is writing and telling Ramayana to the readers, it is my dharma, it is my duty to tell what Valmiki has said. Of course, the name might have changed. And you did mention about Girivraja.
Yes.
Girivraja occurs here, as well as Girivraja was the capital on the banks of river Sudhama, which is in the current day Afghanistan, which was the region of Bharata. So there are 2 Girivrajas. People ask, how can there be 2 Girivrajas? You have a Hyderabad in Bharatadesham, you have a Hyderabad in Pakistan. You have a Salem here, you have a Salem in the US. So you have 2 names. So it is possible.
And this also, of course, underlines the universal and, in fact, the pan-Indian relevance of the Ramayana. Before the Pran Pratishtha took place on the 22nd of January, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in fact, spent a considerable amount of time visiting temples across different parts of Tamil Nadu. Questions had been raised then about why he's doing so. And we know the answer as to why that was, because of the pan-Indian relevance of Lord Rama. If you could just dwell a bit more on that, and particularly the relevance of Lord Rama in the south, the southern part of our country, including the state of Tamil Nadu today.
Very much. So, Srimad Ramayanam, the name of the Kavyam itself, in its states that it is the path, the journey of Rama. It is the Ayana Shabdam with Rama that becomes Rama plus Ayana is Ramayana. So Ramayanam in itself means the path, the sojourn of Rama through Bharatadesham. So essentially we had the Kula Deivam. So in Bharatadesham, I'm sure most of your viewers will relate to, we have this concept of having a family deity. We have a Devata for the family whom we all revere, worship. And it could be in a village, it could be in a tier 2 city, it could be in a metro. So Ikshvaku, the kings of Ikshvaku Vamsham, Dasharatha, Mandata, Asamanjas, Dilipa, Amshuman, so on and so forth, their Kuladhanam was called Narayana or Jagannatha. And interestingly, towards the end of Rama's Pattabhishekam in Yuddhakandam, Vibhishana asks, can I have a gift? It's like the concept of the return gift. And Rama was more than happy to say that, please take whatever you want. He said, please give me the Kuladhanam, what you've been worshipping. So Narayana, the Jagannatha, the beautiful Vigraha Murti, which the kings of Ikshvaku Vamsha worshipped, that was given to Vibhishana, and on his journey to Lanka, he established that Murti on the banks of river Kaveri, which is today called Srirangam, and Narayana or Jagannatha, the name of the Murti, became Ranganatha. And interestingly, the Honorable Prime Minister went to Srirangam, because if you are going to commemorate a temple for Rama, you need to respect Rama's Kuladeivam, which is in Srirangam. So Bharatadesham is beautifully linked. It's like a beautiful piece of embroidery. east to west. Why should I stick to Bharatadesham? You go to Indonesia, in the beautiful island of Bali, you have a dance called Kechak dance, which is performed day in and day out in the Rāmāyaṇam. The king's surname in Thailand is Ramkeen. You go to Cambodia, you will have beautiful panels of Rāmāyaṇam of the 13th century, Suryavarman II Khmer dynasty in Angkor Wat. So you go till Persia, you go till north. Rāmāyaṇam has its influence everywhere.
One of the issues that is dealt with very early into this chronicling of Lord Rama's life is the fact that he is Vishnu's incarnation, no doubt, but in human form, and therefore subject to certain human frailties as well. And this is one ethical dilemma that crops up in the epic itself, and that is when a pregnant Sita Mata is banished into the forest.
If we keep the divinity, the Paramatmatvam inside Rama aside for a minute and just look at him as a human, to err is human, to forgive is divine is what we often say. Not all our acharyas have endorsed Rama's act of sending Sita to the forest. But the contrary view is Rama could have sought an expert opinion on this, because he's an administrator, he could have sought. But when we read Ramayanam, it is not about our opinion that should be thrust upon it. We have to see the incidents there. So Rama doesn't doubt Sita even for a second. Even during Agni Pariksha, it was a prize chittam for an atonement for the words that she had spoken against Lakshmana before she was being kidnapped. So when we look at even this scene, there is one particular incident where Sita goes through a gallery, Bhavabhuti describes in Uttara Ramacharithram, where she looks at the rishis who have been so serene, they give such a beautiful atmosphere in the forest, and she says, now that I'm pregnant, I feel my children should grow up in this atmosphere. And Rama says, okay, well, that's point well taken. And it does so happen that Bhadra, one of the informers, says that there are a bunch of people who do talk not so good about Sita's stay while she was languishing in Lanka. So Rama has a dilemma, not about her character, her charitram, anything of it. He feels there should be no blot on his administration. In fact, Narayana Bhattadri, one of the greatest bhaktas and composers in the 16th century in the famed temple Guruvayur of Kerala, in his work called Narayaniyam, says, maybe Rama's extra over-attachment to dharma. See, I often joke, there are certain people who are used to showing that I'm taking a turn with their hand. And once the indicator came, they didn't have to do it. But they would still show their hand and then put the indicator. That's like dharma atitam. They do something overtly. And Rama's attachment to dharma, dharmo vigrahavan adharma viratim, his attachment to dharma was spotless, blemishless, so much so that he was ready to sacrifice his own family's peace. See, when people say pregnant Sita was sent to the forest, he ensured that she was put into Valmiki's ashramam. Yes. At the same time, the pain that he had to undergo. See, it was very common, Siddhartha, in those days to be polygamous. His father was polygamous. Nobody would have cast any kind of fingers, thrown fingers at him. Rama could have married many times. But his policy of respecting a woman, respecting his life partner, marrying once itself. See, after sending Sita to forest, he didn't. He too had to bear the brunt and the sorrow of it. Yes. So we have to just treat this as an incident where the administrator is extra attached to rules and dharma, so much so that he is ready to sacrifice his own family's peace and prosperity.
In fact, Sita gets back at him. I mean, in a different episode in the book, she gives a piece of her mind when she says, my father firmly thought he will stay by my side all through, like him who always backs my mother. His protection of Mithila and its praja is equally well known. In our fields of Mithila, the farmers used to fix scarecrows with arrows in their hands to guard their crops. I now realize that you are the scarecrow of Ayodhya. My father did not recognize the fact that you were a woman masquerading as a man.
Very true. So this comes at that juncture in Ayodhya Kandam where Rama has been ordained to go to the forest for 14 years to Dandakaranyam. He informs his mother Kaushalya. Kaushalya is very upset, but then he convinces his mother to stay back and take care of the praja along with the father. Then he comes to the apartment, the Shuddhatma, the Antavpuram of Sita, and says, Sita, I'll miss you a lot. 14 years is a long turn. After 14 years, let's meet. And that's when Sita keeps telling him that I need to join you. Why will I stay in the Ayodhya? And finally, when Rama refuses to take her, he says, Kim tvamanyata vaidehaha pitame mithiladipah ramajamataram prapya striyam purusha vigraham. Oh Rama, all this while my father was under the assumption that he got and married me to a man. Little did he know that he got and married me to a woman in the disguise. What she meant was, you keep saying that I am the student of Vasishtha, I have the power of the bow and the arrow. If you can't use them, why do you even carry them like the scarecrow? So this particular verse is in Valmiki Rāmāyaṇam. Your viewers will be very, very inquisitive, because they will know that the commentary that I've written about this shloka comes from a commentary of Periyavachan Pillai, who wrote it 900 years back in Manipravalam. So this commentary to this verse comes from that particular episode.
I'd like to finish with one particular quote that you gave in an interview, where you said that this entire exercise that you've undertaken of chronicling the life of Lord Rama is a prayashchitam for an aparadham that Lord Rama was subjected to.
See, we say that we are a secular country, and secular country either means there should be no connection with any religion, or there should be respect for all religions. There can be only one of the two. But in the last 60 to 70 years, especially in the state of Tamil Nadu, in the garb of Dravidian ideology, one of their revered and respected ideologues called Periyar took up rallies. There have been multiple statements made against Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, very nasty, I can't even repeat, obnoxious statements made against Rama. And it did so happen around in 1970-71, there was a rally taken in the city of Salem, where there was a chappal mala hung around Rama's neck, and Sita was called by names. And this is the state, I'm sure your viewers will know, Tamil Nadu is a state that attracts the maximum number of tourists, domestic and international. And 85% of them visit the temples built by the Cholas, the Pandyas, the Cheras, the Vijayanagaras, the Pallavas. Grand temples, massive temples, what gopurams, what sculptures. And these kings, time and again in all inscriptions, have stated how true they are dedicated to the Vedas, the Vedanta and the civilization. And in the garb of protecting the Tamil culture, they have hurled abuses at Rama. So this, and people should not be under the assumption that people in Tamil Nadu are like that. People in Tamil Nadu are extremely bhakti-laden, extremely devoted. A handful of people, and that too, some of the members of these own Dravidian parties go temple after temple. So the aparadham was to call Rama by different names, obnoxious names. And of course, amongst the various objectives, this book was launched and released in Chennai, the Rajdhani of Tamil Nadu, as a prayashchitam, as an atonement to that aparadham there. And one more thing, Siddhartha. It's not that they have no connection with Rama. The very revered chief minister of Tamil Nadu was M.G. Ramachandran.
Correct.
His wife was Janaki. She too was a chief minister for some time. And the ideologue, Periyar, his name was Ramaswamy Nayakar. And Jayalalitha was a sworn bhakta, going temple after temple. And many acharyas called Rama as the very treasure trove of Karuna. So he's called Karunanidhi Ilalo. So Ramachandran, Janaki, Karunanidhi, Ramaswamy. And tell me one state that has so many names and yet you negate Ramayana.
Finally, sir, before we leave you, when I was growing up, I heard the Kannada rendition of the Kumara Vyasa Bharata of the Mahabharata. If you could just leave our viewers, you also have a wonderful voice, with something that they can take this interview away with. Something to chronicle the life of Lord Rama in a few couplets if you can, because this book, which is volume 1, actually ends with Bharata returning to Ayodhya with the Paduka of Lord Rama. Of course, there is lots still to be written and narrated, which we'll expect in volume 2, but if you could just leave our viewers with something that they can cherish from this interview, the life of Lord Rama, if you could just recollect one episode in your wonderful voice.
So, Siddhartha, you did mention about the ending of the book, which ends with Ayodhya Kandam, the coronation of the Padukas, the holy sandals of Rama, through Bharata. So, 750 years back, there was a polymath called Vedanta Deshika in the south of India, who in 3 hours' time wrote a mammoth kavyam called Paduka Sahasram of 1008 verses, and that emphasizes the importance given to the Padukas of the Lord. So 2 verses from that particular kavyam. Bharataya param namostu tasmai prathamodaharanaya bhakti bhajam yadupajñam asheshatav prithvyam pratito raghava paduka prabhavaha nishesham ambaratalam yadi patrika syat saptarnavi yadi sametyamashi bhavitri vakta sahasravadanaha purushasvayam chet Likheta Rangapati Padukayor Prabhavaha.
Beautiful, beautiful, Mr. Sridhar. It was lovely to have you here with us in our studio to talk about Ramayanam Volume 1. Volume 2 is expected next year, sir?
Yeah, next year.
Okay.
And thanks, Siddhartha, and thanks to Times Now for respecting our civilization, respecting our scriptures. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.